to say, no matter how much we fight, hey, we got each other's back. That's what's important.
Man, please. I had to. That little thing outweighed your little ass.
Thank you anyway. I know it must be difficult for you fighting a family member.
I just wanted to let you know about my study group.
Oh, don't be a fuddy-duddy. I'll be your study buddy.
I'm about to embark on one of the great challenges of my scientific career.
This work right here is going to change history.
I think this is going to be our greatest mission.
I don't have time to study. I'll never get into Stanford.
I got big plans for you tonight. I got maps, I got charts. I'm going to see you through this because my credibility is on the line.
It's at this point that you'll want to start taking notes.
Welcome to the Sitcom Study, the podcast where we contemplate the TV shows we grew up with and search for the truth and wisdom within the tropes and cliches. And Amy, what have we gathered here today to accomplish?
Well, we're going to talk about Martin.
Martin Mixtape is what we're doing. Yep. If you're not familiar, we normally take a sitcom trope, be it giving birth in an elevator or going to a class reunion, say, and we track that trope across 4 different sitcoms from throughout the ages. But once in a while, we make a mixtape where we revisit all of our past conversations about a certain show. So this is sort of our version of a clip show, but we're going to give you some new great intrigue by taking a Martin quiz.
That's right. We're going to embarrass ourselves because neither of us watched Martin very much, I think, growing up. But boy,
did.
do we
I just
love
don't remember
it now.
Yeah. I was just going to say, before we get into our old segments and our quiz, just a little waxing philosophical about Martin. I feel like this is one of the great surprises of our podcast. I think we both kind of had this notion of like, oh, Martin, that'll be a fun one.
It was funny.
Yeah,
remember that Wanda character?
Problematic,
we can't really talk about that anymore.
Yeah, but then it turns out that like every time we love this show, and I feel like we always say the same thing, that it gives it's so generous with what they let Gina, Tisha Campbell do in terms of the comedy, the silliness, the slapstick, the
funny.
Crazy voices and faces. It's a little sullied by the fact that I guess we know by the end it was one of these where they were refusing to be on set at the same time and they ended up not getting along. But all of the shows that we've watched so far we really like, and I would say this has really risen from, in my memory, this was like a middle of the pack 90s sitcom to now I consider it like really one of the best.
Oh yeah. One of the best. And like every time there's a Martin episode that fits into one of our tropes, I'm like, oh, let's watch it because it's just so good. I mean, Gina, the character, is really doing like her version of Lucy from I Love Lucy. And it is so funny. Yeah. Which you're going to hear us talk about a ton because we just love her so much. And every one of these episodes, we go on and on about her great bits.
Yeah. It's just the antidote to that thing that we're always complaining about with Tim Taylor and King of Queens and all the rest of them. It's like just because you are a wacky, funny guy does not mean that your wife has to be this wet blanket, boring person that just gets mad and harumphs
and
around
doesn't have any fun in any of her scenes. Exactly.
Yeah, no, exactly. Gina is a riot. The other thing I just want to say about the two of them is I was aware of them from when I was a little kid from House Party. Right. That movie House Party, that is a great early example of that late 80s, early 90s hip hop culture kind of trickling down to suburban kids like me. You know, I would watch that movie at sleepovers and we thought it was a blast. And what I think back to now is how Martin and Tisha Campbell are both in that. They don't have a ton of scenes together, but they both have the same exact function, which is they are the actors. They are the ones that have to hold down the fort for these two rappers, Christopher and Christopher, Kid and Play, who are at the center of the movie, but they're not actors. They're vaguely charismatic young men.
Right.
And so
rap stars.
You've got them almost at all times. Kid and or Play is on screen with either Tisha Campbell or Martin Lawrence. Yeah. And they're where, you know, they're making sure everything gets done, you know,
right, they're making the scene go.
Yeah, exactly. So let's run it down. What are the podcasts where we talked about Martin?
All right. Well, the first one we talked about Martin was our class reunions. It's Martin's high school reunion, and it's Martin season 2, episode 2, Really, Gina's Not My Lover. We also talked about them on our Romantic Getaways episode, and we watched season 3, episode 24, Romantic Weekend. We talked about them again on our Bachelor Parties episode. We watched season 3, episode 25, the very next episode, and that was called The Bachelor Party. And then finally, Secret Musical Talents. That was the name of the podcast. And we watched season 4, episode 3 of Martin, called Blow Baby Blow.
Yeah, so before we get into our old segments, we're going to start a quiz. We found a Martin quiz online. These always, you know, these bring out our true colors sometimes as to what we really remember about these shows. I've been shamed and embarrassed multiple times when I forgot. What did I forget about Saved by the Bell?
I don't remember. And there was something else that you forgot about Fresh Prince, and you were beating yourself up about it for the next few days.
Yeah, so this time I think, since, like we said, we have similar experiences with Martin. I think oftentimes I'm the one claiming to be knowledgeable, so you ask me the questions. So this time I'm going to ask you, and if you don't know, we'll try to sort of work it out together.
Well, and this one's a good one, right? Because it has multiple choice, which is going to be helpful.
And I don't know the answers either until I click on one of these.
Right.
So, all right, we're going to start out with, I think, kind of a softball. What does Martin say when he kicks someone out of his house? Do you want the options, or do you want to just go
I need
on?
the options.
Sure. He says, leave, get to steppin'.
That's what he says.
Right. The other options are buy or exit my home. Yeah. I would love to hear Martin say exit my home.
To Pam, right? The friend that he hates.
Get to steppin'.
Get to steppin', Pam.
Yeah, yes. I would love it if his catchphrase were simply buy.
Or exit my home.
I'm going to click get to steppin', and we say correct. Martin never asks someone to leave politely. He will make everyone know when to step.
Get to steppin'.
Who makes a special appearance when Martin proposes to Gina?
Ooh.
I'd say these are all musicians. Do you have any guesses you want to just throw out there at the start?
I do not.
All right. Your options are Luther Vandross, Brian McKnight.
Luther Vandross?
Yeah.
Okay.
I say Vandross. Michael Jackson or Tevin Campbell?
I'm going to go with Brian McKnight.
Who is Brian McKnight?
He is a smooth R&B singer. This was definitely like his time frame. Luther Vandross at this time was still kicking. He was doing stuff with Celine Dion on the Disney soundtracks.
I was just going to say, you would get him to record like your sexy jam version of like Part of Your World or something at the end credits of your Disney movie.
But yeah, Brian McKnight is a little bit younger, but of the same vein, and he isn't like a super high tenor like Luther Vandross.
I think Michael Jackson is out of the question. I don't think they had the pull to get him on their show. I'm going to go with Tevin Campbell, or that's my personal guess.
I don't know who Tevin Campbell is.
He made an appearance on The Fresh Prince as Ashley's boyfriend. He was a kid in the early 90s. He had like one big song, and he was like a 13, 14-year-old kid, and then hung around, you know, for a while.
I have a feeling it's Brian McKnight, and he got, was like singing a sweet song.
Yeah.
In that way.
I'm clicking McKnight. And that's getting a green check mark. Correct.
Yes!
Brian sang Never Felt This Way while Martin proposed.
I knew it. I had this sort of vague recollection of him singing.
I'll give you one more and then we could go to our first segment. Where does Tommy work?
Oh, the tall guy worked at a school.
All right. So one of your answers is at a school.
Yes.
We also have at a club, at a warehouse, or he ain't got no job.
Okay.
That's wrong. He ain't got no job.
Oh, so maybe it's the short one that works with kids.
Yeah, it says Tommy never talks about his job, so my guess is he doesn't even have one. So this is actually this BuzzFeed correspondent.
They don't even know. Come on, BuzzFeed. Boo.
Yeah.
All right. With that crappy question, let's go into one of the best and most surprising episodes that I think that we've ever put on our podcast. This was such a joy to watch. It was really early in our run. It's from our high school reunions episode, and it is really Gina's Not My Lover.
Yeah, here it is. But, okay, so much for Married with Children. Shall we talk Martin?
Martin, season 2, episode 2, really, Gina is not my lover.
So were you a Martin gal in the 90s?
Yes. I think Living Single and Martin were, once the tide turned and my parents allowed Fox viewing in my in my house.
Glorious day.
Yes, this was one of the shows that I got into. I really liked Living Single and I really liked Martin. I loved the In Living Color, like the two snaps in a circle, like the Men on Film where they were doing that. So then when you had, was it Shanae that Martin did, I was such a sucker for that stuff. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, I have some thoughts about Shanae, but before we get there, I just want to say that I was a Martin guy too. I really liked House Party, the movie. House Party came out in 1990, I think. That's this really fun sort of early 90s hip hop comedy with Kid and Play. And the sort of third and fourth characters in that movie are Martin Lawrence and Tisha Campbell. So I was just sort of familiar with them when they made this show. And yeah, I remember liking it. I feel like for whatever reason, I didn't have that relationship with it where it was always on, over the years. So it got sort of lost in my memory banks a little.
Yeah, I think, it probably would have made it to syndication when we were later in high school and not watching as much after school. True.
All right. So you mentioned Shanae. I'm going to say I loved this episode overall. This first scene made me a little nervous.
Yes.
And you also mentioned the Jamie Foxx thing. And that's what immediately occurred to me is like, this was definitely a thing in the early 90s. Black guys doing drag, like not just drag, but these sort of, I'll use the word grotesque, these weird, you look up Jamie Foxx Wanda, the first thing that pops up is this cross-eyed, weird pucker-mouthed face he's doing. Like it's just so bizarre.
Yeah.
And, I guess we were a few years away from Medea, but, there's guys in drag was all over the place. You look at any episode of The State or Kids in the Hall or anything, it knows no racial or ethnic boundaries. But I feel like this was a certain thing, the Jamie Foxx, Martin Lawrence thing.
Which they have, in years since received an awful lot of criticism about, because not only is it problematic on the, they're straight men doing these stereotypes as either gay or, trans, and then also they are putting down Black women. All of these characters have very strong opinions and, they're always, taking their nails off and trying to get in a fight or whipping their hair. They always have some insult and it always has something to do with the culture that they're insulting other people about. And so, yeah, there's just a lot of it didn't age well. I too, when I was I had this sort of conflict within me because I remembered my middle school self really thinking that it was very funny and laughing at it. And so I was kind of like, oh man, I hope Shanae is in this episode. I want to see just a little bit of it. And then we started the episode with it. And I was like, oh God, this isn't good.
I think you're exactly right. Talking about the intersectionality of people that this is problematic for, because I'm watching it going I honestly don't know exactly who this is offensive to, but I just have that feeling this is not good.
Yeah.
But thankfully, it is only a little bit of Shanae. And after that first scene is Tisha Campbell, her character Gina, and her friend have a little encounter with Shanae. We get our taste of that. And then after that, we're in the apartment. We get Gina and Martin. And this got me thinking, is this the first show we've talked about that's a couple? right? That's not a family. That's not a workplace. It's not a group of friends. This is a different vibe. This is the Mad About You. This is the, that thing where it's just a man and a woman living together and their issues, and it's a different feel.
Yeah, a couple with no kids,
Right.
and then maybe the ancillary characters like Pam and Martin's friends who come in and out. Yeah, I think you might be right, and it was nice. This is season 2, and they have a history of acting together, right? So the timing is wonderful. Tisha Campbell, I could watch her in anything. She knows how to do the physical comedy. We get brilliance from her later on and all of like the physical faces and everything and the body that she's doing. She really, like, this is a home run for her. And then this is another example of that, comedian gets his own show kind of thing. So you can tell she is meant to be the straight man to, Martin Lawrence, and he is just yucking it up doing, we see them, Martin is doing push-ups and like counting and doing all this workout stuff and being very, exuberant and energetic. And she, Tisha Campbell Gina comes out from the bedroom with her coffee and is like, it's morning and she's in a robe and he's been up for hours. She's like, what are you doing? And he's like, I gotta get ready for this reunion. It's my reunion. I'm gonna win. Man of the Decade. So we have another goal award.
Yes. Same story. Like Martin has basically the same scenario and the same motivation as Peg. His energy is great. She's great. You're right that she's the straight man, but there is this sort of joy to their dynamic. And, when she gets annoyed with him, it's only sort of momentary and he gets her laughing again. And you're right that later on, we're really going to get to see that she has not at all been saddled with the boring spouse part to play. But yeah, for now, we're getting mostly Martin doing his thing. He has this wild energy. He starts talking about the reunion, and we get the first instance of this recurring thing where he talks about this guy. He starts talking about Ricky Fontaine, and he gets this kind of faraway look in his eye, and he kind of jerks his head to the side, and he says, Pretty Ricky's what they called him. And he just has that, kind of wild, like semi-psychotic energy that I had really forgotten about. And I was like, oh yeah, this is like, you're seeing the influence of the Jim Carrey era of comedy. Everything's a little cranked up, but it's definitely his distinct version of that. And it's fun. Like he's really funny.
Yeah, I would liken his sort of energy to Kevin Hart. They have that's kind of a similar sort of like very amped up energy, and Martin has this backstory from school where he was not cool. He got fronted on many times and was sort of the butt of jokes, and made fun of. And he knows that he is now successful, right? So he is this, number one DJ in Detroit. He's got this radio show that's super popular, and he's, a celebrity in town, and is going to go back to the reunion and be like, look, I made something of myself, and all those guys who hated on me, I'm going to show them what for. Yes. And Pretty Ricky being one of them. But he makes a list. He has a little reporter's notepad
a memo pad,
like ticking names off.
The payback list.
Right. That and once he gets to the reunion, is like going up and having these exchanges with people where he gets one over on them because of his success, and then also puts them down. And then now he can cross them off the list.
Right. So we get a different dynamic here, because Martin doesn't have to invent fake success. He doesn't have to pretend to be a garbage man that sleeps with his wife 5 times a week. Yeah, he is a relatively successful person. He's supposed to go with Gina, but she can't go.
She can't go. And this is where the premise of this episode gets problematic, right? So they're having their coffee. He's got all this manic energy. He tells her that she needs to go to the dentist to get her teeth whitened because she drinks too much coffee. He tells her that in order for her to be ready to be the man of the decades, woman at this reunion, he's like, I have a day of beauty planned for you.
Yeah.
So she's going to go get like a real pedicure and manicure because he messed up her nails last time he did it for her. And she's going to get a facial, and so he's planned a spa day for her, which is very nice. But the way he pitches it is very much like, you've got to look your best so that I can. And she doesn't have, she kind of laughs at, she's just appreciative of the spa day, but it rings in my ear with a little bit of that misogyny that I don't like. And then also knowing that, Tisha Campbell left the show the last season and sued Martin Lawrence for sexual harassment.
That all sucks. But I would say about the storyline, I think it's very much the show is going to show you, that's his foible for making her do that and for thinking that way. And that's what's going to lead to the, comically disastrous results at the end. But so what makes it that she can't go?
So she gets a facial, an avocado mask.
Right.
And she's allergic to avocado. And so she has all of this, like she comes home and has all these sort of red bumps all over her face because she's had an allergic reaction. And while at the dentist was like, oh, hey, while I'm in here, why don't I fill that cavity and hit a nerve with the Novocaine or something. And so she's got this big swollen part of her face and she can't really talk because she's all numb. So she's drooling. So she looks a mess. Like she comes home from her spa day, her face is all, red and blotchy from this allergic reaction. She's got the one side of her face is all puffed up because of where they did this dental work, and there's stuff in there now, and she's drooling everywhere. And they gave her some other medicine because of all of that. And so she's loopy. The dentist prescribed some pain meds that she didn't take because she wanted to be able to go to the reunion. And she comes to the door and we see this face. I mean, it's comical, all of this stuff going on. And then Martin Lawrence turns to camera and is like, like, oh, she's such a dog. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
He tries to be nice about it and is like, oh, no, you should go to sleep. You should take those pills and go to sleep. Like, you don't have to go. I'll go by myself. It's okay. And then she goes off and he's like, thank goodness.
So he goes stag to the reunion. And we have a very similar kind of situation as the Married with Children thing, where his payback is basically just insulting people, is dissing. Right.
Like he gets a zinger in on them. And also he like talks about his show being, number one. And then it's very funny. He's walking around with this sort of hunched posture with his little memo pad. He's going up to somebody going, your mom sucks eggs, and crossing their name off the list. He usually tries to kind of trick them into, sort of ease them into a little bit of a conversation so he can really get a good zinger in.
Yeah.
And those are well done. And then Pretty Ricky arrives.
Right.
And then we have a whole Your Mama back and forth diss scene, which... Can I just say, like, did you guys do this in middle school? Did you get a gang of people together and then trade insults like that?
I don't know. I don't know if I personally was in one of these like schoolyard scenes, but yes, that was a nationwide phenomenon for sure.
Your Mama joke.
Yeah, they would sell books in Barnes and Noble of Your Mama jokes. They would call them snaps.
Of course, that they sold books. For Your Mama. Okay.
Yeah. And this was where it came from, right? These early 90s Black comedians.
Yeah. So he's in the middle of this, Your Mama off with Pretty Ricky, and Pretty Ricky isn't going quietly into the night, right? Like he is going to give as good as Martin, and they're going back and forth. And so we find out one of the reasons that he dislikes Pretty Ricky is that Pretty Ricky stole this girl from him. And he had just like finished dissing that girl for leaving him and going with Pretty Ricky. And he turns around and there's Pretty Ricky, and off they go. So he sort of round one kind of comes out, Martin kind of comes out on top with my girlfriend's a model and we live together and I've got this great show. And also here's a few zingers. Yeah. And then there's a moment where the room is distracted because someone has walked in. And the camera pans over and we see Gina in her sexy red dress with her bra coming out of the top, her makeup smeared all over her face. She's drawn on eyebrows, but she's only done the outline of them. So like we have the center of her eyebrows are empty.
Yes.
She's put on cat eyes, but they're, like cat eye eyeliner,
This
but it's
is a
wonky.
Post-lobotomy homeless woman type look.
And she is doing she's got this big smile and these huge eyes. The acting is, she was so good. She has her eyes bugged out of her head. She's got this sort of sideways smile because she still has the dental work, so she can't really talk. And her smile's sideways and her lipstick is sideways to emphasize that. And she's still drooling. And, like I said, her straps are kind of half off and her bra's coming out of the top of her dress. And she's like, Mom, I love you here, and doing, she can't speak. And they're like, what is that? And Martin's like, oh, fans, they follow me everywhere. Let me handle this.
Yeah. Martin disassociates from her. But we talked before about how Tisha Campbell didn't get stuck with the boring straight man spouse part. And this ending, look, I'm not going to say I personally think this was the most hilarious scene in a TV show ever, but that they give her a long time with this and a lot of physical comedy. It's that same lack of vanity that the male comedians get to have, that same crazy goofiness and rolling around and being crazy. And it really sucks to hear that their real life relationship was bad because...
Well, I guess it fell apart towards the end because this is several years before that happened.
Yeah, and whatever it is, watching this, you really get the sense of true collaboration and that they really feel like equals and that she can be just as silly and crazy as him. And you understand why they're together and the whole thing just really works. And you get the story thing of him sort of getting karmic payback for trying to use her as a status symbol and trying to make sure that she's all painted up because she ends up being, this comical absurdity.
Right. She's a mess. She's got one heel that's broken. By the way, she's doing all of this in a dress and heels, right? So when guys get to do this over the top, whatever, the only thing they really have to worry about is potentially splitting their pants, right? She's doing this and trying not to show her full hoo-ah because she's in a tight skirt and heels. She's got hose on. She's slipping and sliding all over the place. She's falling out of her chair. The face alone, she just bugs her eyes out. It's so funny. And, at first Martin tries to distance himself and then he comes over and is like, oh, we got to get you out of here, and his friends that, we know from other episodes are there and they're helping. And then Pretty Ricky is like, hey, this doesn't look like this is any old fan. And now we get another round of the Your Mamas because Pretty Ricky has realized that this is the so-called model that Martin was talking about. And then Martin does the flip and he's like, you would be lucky to have a woman like this, Yeah.
And so you get the sort of, the moral of the story is, be yourself and don't front, as they used to say, right?
Right.
If you try to pull off this, whether you're pretending to be a garbage man or, you're just trying to make your wife into some sort of idyllic creation, you gotta just be yourself and let the truth speak. All right, you want to move on to 30 Rock?
30 Rock, we are watching.
Okay, so that was the Martin segment from our high school reunions episode. We are now going to move on to our romantic getaways podcast segment. But first, we're going to continue our quiz. So my next question for you, Amy, who lives across the hall from Martin. I think
Shanae.
this is the one we can get without the options.
Yes,
This
I
is
said Wanda
Shanae.
earlier, but that's because I always conflate Shanae and Wanda.
Let me ask you this.
Wanda was Jamie Foxx's character that he played on In Living Color.
There's a lot of, even just within the subheading of Martin's gender-bending roles in the 90s. You've got between Mama's House and Shanae, you've got a lot going on there. How would you have guessed you spell Shanae? This isn't part of the quiz. This is just my surprise.
Yeah. I probably would have had like an N-A-Y repeating.
It's not. It's SHENENEH. Like
or at least
Shenandoah.
according to BuzzFeed, who, we should probably look that one up.
Yeah. All right. So to answer our confusion from before, Cole is the other friend.
Cole is the short friend.
Yeah.
Got it.
Who is Cole's girlfriend from season 1 to season 4?
Ooh, that's a good
we've got a few
question.
options that are pretty familiar sounding. We've got Big Shirley, Pam, Sharonda, and Kilolo.
Yeah. So one of them does start dating Pam at a certain time.
No, I remember that. But season 1 to season 4, I don't know. I would have thought that was like a wrinkle that happened later
on. Exactly.
I know Big Shirley is a thing. I don't know
Big
what
Shirley, but Sharonda also sounds familiar to me too.
But whether they have had a Shanae and a Sharonda on the same show.
No, you're probably right. All right. Let's go Big Shirley. If it ends up being Pam, I'm going to be mad because that was my initial thought.
Big Shirley is correct. Cole loves him some Big Shirley, but we never knew what she looked like.
Because we only ever see parts of her body.
So she is a taco from iCarly or a one of these people we never get to see.
But we do see parts of her, right? Because she's like the nanny from Muppet Babies, where you only see her feet, or you only see her body, or whatever.
All right. Next question. Besides himself, how many characters did Martin play? And I have to say, I have to give you the choices, I feel like, because I don't know, what would you have thrown out there if you didn't have multiple choice?
Well, I mean, he's himself. He plays Martin, and he also plays Shanae. And then besides himself. Oh, it does. Oh, okay. So then that's it. So because they said that, then I would probably guess there's at least, 1 or 2 more other than Shanae. So I'd say 2 or 3. That's what I'd be looking at.
Your choices are 8, 9, 10, or 11.
So they're counting every
he
other
must have
character
had all different little cameos, different funny little bits over the series.
I bet he plays an old man at some point.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
The 90s we liked to mess around
Well, it's
with.
all because of Coming to America. Eddie Murphy set us up for it.
That's a big one, yep. And then the subsequent Eddie Murphy movies later, too.
Yeah. So let's see. Goodness. 8, 9, 10, or 11. 10. Total guess.
That is wrong. He played 9 characters, and I'm seeing right now a picture of him with a short, kind of like a
church
a
lady.
B. Arthur, like a short gray woman's wig, and he's dressed like an old lady. So that's one of the 9.
He's got the
characters.
church fan. Yeah.
Now we're going to go over to our Romantic Getaways podcast. Do you remember the other things, the other ones in this? Was this a Dick Van Dyke? Was this, I don't know. We remember that Martin really took the cake on this with the chinchilla and all that stuff.
The big fight scene where we got more of Gina and her amazing physical comedy.
Yeah,
and we also have Pam and Tommy, right, coming to visit. I think at this point, maybe they aren't dating yet. Or no, Pam and Cole, not Pam and Tommy. Pam and Cole come. This
is one that really descends into chaos, and I think this really cemented our feeling of we love Martin.
Yeah.
So here it is from our Romantic Getaways podcast. All right, so let's move on to Martin.
The Romantic Weekend, Season 3, Episode 24.
Yep. So we talked about Martin before, back in our class reunions episode, and I think it's fair to say that was one of our most sort of pleasantly surprised, not that we had poor expectations for Martin, but we really kind of liked that, I think, and kind of latched onto it.
So funny. I just remember I remember not remembering how physical comedy was at the heart of this show. And now seeing a second episode, it really is like this whole episode is just about them. I swear there's pages of the script where it's just like Martin fights Pam. Martin fights rodent.
It's not the whole episode, I think. It's like the whole second half of it. But where I'm going with this is we covered it once before. It was a season 2 episode. This is a season 3 episode of Martin. And it seems like a lot has changed, which isn't to say this one isn't good, but it seems different. I think the vibe is different. I remember you talking about how they had issues, Tisha Campbell and Martin Lawrence, behind the scenes. And I remember saying like, oh, that's kind of surprising. They seem so, sort of clicking together on screen. And in this one, it seems a little more believable to me that they might have had issues off screen. What I'll say is that Martin is giving us a lot to react to. I think there's going to be a lot to talk about here. Good stuff, bad stuff. The sort of trade-off that I'll throw out there right away is in this one, we get no Shanae.
That's right.
We considered Shanae one of the more problematic elements of season 2, Martin. So we've gotten rid of that. What we have now is his friend Tommy's girlfriend, right? That every single thing that Martin says to her is a joke about her being an animal. Right?
Well, and we had Pam in the episode in season 2 that we watched as well, and he didn't like her then either.
Right. But a different dynamic because there's
it has gotten way worse. Like the focus, he can't say anything to her without him calling her a horse, a dog, a rodent, something.
Yeah, it's an aspect that doesn't age well, I will say, which isn't to say I necessarily think it's evil and sinister. What I just started thinking was like, yeah, again, this, like, Martin is going to make us work for it. Like, he's going to quadruple down on any aspect of the comedy that you might find a little problematic or troubling. Like, you're not going to be able to just kind of brush it off and go, well, he only did that once. Like, no, he's going to do it again and again. But what it got me thinking is, like, he's sort of the opposite of Michael J. Fox, we says everything with this childlike wink that even if it's bad, you don't take it too seriously. Martin, on the other hand, is just so angry that it's funny,
Yeah, he is. He only has kind of biting remarks, except for Gina. Mm-hmm. And he will say them in such a way that he's not saying them like a human person talking to his friends. He is saying them so that the studio audience will laugh.
Yeah. Yeah, he's very much a cartoon character, a comedian, or whatever. But there's just something about his brewing contempt that just is entertaining. And so, look, we can approach every show like with this Mr. Rogers attitude and say everybody should be nice to each other. Again, watching it in 2023, having like 17 remarks about how, the woman's a dog, go chew on your chew toy, whatever, I see your cousin over there peeing on a fire hydrant, yes, it gets old, but it's got something going that he's funny and I don't write it off the way I do the other stuff. I guess the last thing I'll say about this is I just wish she got more digs on him.
The Pam character was able to. Well, so what I always find interesting is because he always goes for her first and then she gets a comeback and then he gets another comeback because it's his show. Yeah. And then Gina steps in. That's sort of the patter of the constant whatever. Gina never comes to the defense of her friend, but she redirects Martin to not focus on that, to focus on her. And the minute she says something, Martin isn't angry anymore. Yeah. She is his little magic balm that calms him down. The thing that I noticed about Gina and what I feel is kind of the change that I've seen with the Gina character between when we watched in season 2 to this is almost the end of season 3. In season 2, Martin was doing nice things for her because he loved her and he knew she was stressed out from work and wanted her to get all prettied up and all this stuff for the reunion. In this one, he is only doing nice things for her because she's begging him because she's so bored. And her way to do that is with this like baby talk voice I was like, whoa. I mean, it's funny. Don't get me wrong. It's funny, but it's weird. I was like, why? Every now and then I think it would work, but why always Martin? I'm like, what?
I think she's just being wacky. Like, that's the thing that we remarked on last time with this show that definitely continues, is that Gina gets to be wacky, maybe not just as much as Martin, but a lot. And that's a big part of this show. And that does make it different from so many of the married couple sitcoms.
Yeah. I mean, and their wackiness is awesome.
Yeah, but I think that's just what that is. Like Martin, again, this is in the era where Jim Carrey ruled the world, where it's, you gotta have a rubber face and, gotta be like Robin Williams, all these guys, just lots of voices and weird, physical stuff. And so, yeah, I think, Tisha Campbell doesn't come from the same comedy world as Martin Lawrence does. And in a lot of ways, it's more impressive to me because she has to absorb that energy just as an actor, a performer, like coming here with an assignment. Whereas for him, this is from his crazy mind,
right.
And all of this, these are his natural tics and weirdnesses. And so, yeah, I think stuff like the weird baby voice and whatever, like, I think she's just kind of throwing stuff at the wall.
She's just creating something that will go like a lot, like will come alongside of, like you said, his sort of contempt and like angry manic energy. And look, so the premise of this episode, Tommy and Pam are dating now. Mm-hmm. They were Gina's best friend and Martin's best friend, and now they've gotten together. Martin hates it because he hates Pam. And they've been dating for 6 months, and Tommy's going to take her on a romantic weekend. And Gina's kind of put out because Martin and Gina have been engaged for a long time, and Martin never takes her anywhere. So she's kind of pouty about that. And then Martin sees this ad on the back of a cereal box for Chilligan's Island.
Yeah.
And is like, okay, baby, I've been planning this for a long time. We only need 10 more box tops and we can go.
Yeah, so we just watched the movie Punch Drunk Love just by coincidence a few days ago. This reminded me so much of that, the Adam Sandler movie where he's trying to collect pudding tops, trying to buy pudding tops so the proof of purchases can get him airline miles.
Right.
But yeah, I guess talk about pre-internet. I guess this was a thing, like you would find a weird discount, not on a cereal box, but like there's
I mean, it can still be a thing now. Airbnb ads lie.
Sure. So yeah, this is Chilligan's Isle, I should say, which they find on the back of a cereal box. And yeah, this was one of the moments where it's like they're just sort of on the same page, where like Martin is getting all crazy and silly and excited about it, and she just starts getting crazy and silly and excited too.
Yeah, she goes right along with his energy. She's like, Martin, you're going to take me. I'm so excited. Oh, thanks, Martin.
Yeah, so again, I don't know, like they're a little dumb, I guess, but I like that it's not the usual, like one of them is the boring wet blanket.
Right.
And so, it does like cut right to the chase, right? Like next, probably go to a commercial or something. Next scene, we're in the resort and it's a disaster.
Yeah, it's run down. The walls are gross. The floor is dirt. Everything's falling apart. And, just everything that was on the brochure is a lie. But the guy's like, well, the next flight out isn't for 3 days, so you can't get your money back.
The hotel manager is just completely unapologetic.
Yeah. He's like, oh, well, you're right. It's a bait and switch. Gotcha.
But it also reminded me a lot of the New York City realtor things, like all of his little euphemisms where it's like, no, it's just like I said, you have a scenic view. And he shows you, the view of the wall.
It was a view of a clothesline with dirty underwear hanging from it.
Yeah,
and he says there's an international communications system, and he picks up a dead payphone.
Yeah, exactly. All those same little sort of like positive spins that the realtors like to do. But now we get to the part that you were talking about, I think. This is the reason why this episode is so popular, I have to think. It's not because the first half was so interesting when Gina was complaining that they don't ever take vacation.
No, the first half is all a setup so they can do 2 full acts of beating up an animatronic and puppet rodent chinchilla looking thing.
Yeah. We see there's an unnamed animal,
it's
right?
Fluffy and gray and has a tail that wags, and people keep thinking it's a dog, but it is not.
Right. They only think it's a dog at first whenever a new person sees it. It rolls around. It's basically like a skin that you would put over a Roomba, one of those vacuum cleaners. It's like about that size and shape, and rolls around. And so you see it moving in a way that it's clearly rolling as opposed to scampering.
Right.
And so it's immediately very, very fake. And it just reminds me of these scenes that we always loved in Married with Children, where once in a while Al Bundy would get like thrown across a room or something, and they would just cut to a dummy, just a completely lifeless, obviously unconvincing dummy. And just the random spastic way that the limbs would move, and just the way it looks absolutely nothing like a real person when you weren't expecting it, at least when I watched it at, 14, 15 years old, I thought it was the funniest thing. And I think this is that kind of humor where it's just like, especially for the studio audience, but even for the people at home, it's just funny how dumb this looks.
Right. And so like the thing scoots out of the room because Martin's like chasing it, and then comes flying back at Martin in the air.
Through the window, right?
Through the window. Like someone has now thrown the puppet version or the stuffed animal version at Martin. So he's holding it and trying to keep it away from his neck. And then of course it gets his neck. And then you've got the classic gag of I'm fighting with this stuffed animal, holding it up to my neck, trying to
it to your neck.
And then Gina's coming up behind him, like hitting the ass of it that's kind of swinging in the air in front of him. And he's trying to like punch the side of the head. And, and Gina has we talked about this in the reunion episode, right? Where like her legs were just like splayed out everywhere when she was like hopped up on pills or something, right?
She's very good at playing the sort of like I'm throwing away my dignity.
Yeah,
kind of
she is in a sarong, and she's tall. She's got really long legs, so she's got her legs spread wide, and she's just taken this wide leg stance and like speed bagging this little weird rodent thing that's attacking Martin.
Yeah. It goes on. And yes, it is very much like if you remember every once in a while on Saturday Night Live, they'll do one of these things with the little things, the little tubes they put in their sleeve to spew
like vomit and blood.
All over the places.
Yeah.
And it's purely just like a gas for the audience. Like that's all it is just like craziness. Similar to... We've had a few things like this. The Laverne and Shirley thing where they were reenacting the Olympics and chasing each other around the set. Like there are certain things where you're just like, this was just like a circus, for the audience to see.
Audience.
And even watching it on TV, you sort of feed off of that.
Oh, sure. And I thought it was really funny. I was enjoying it. And then it kind of comes to a close. And then we hear through the wall of the, rundown hotel, we hear Pam and Tommy, who were supposed to have gone on a weekend getaway to a luxurious resort. Turns out, same resort, they take the mirror off the wall and there's a big hole and there's Pam and Tommy. Cut to commercial. Now we come back from commercial and they're all fighting with each other. They're arguing with each other about, you were just trying to one-up us. No, you just trying to always make us look bad. And and now we're in this dump and look what you did and all this stuff. And then, surprise, here comes the chinchilla thing again.
Yeah. And this was kind of sweet that, again, more fighting. And when we say, when Amy talks about, half the script was this, I mean, Jesus, this must have been like a 10-page script because these fights just go on and on. So at one point, Martin and Pam are fighting it together.
Right.
And because of the incessant nastiness between them, it does sort of feel like this well-earned character beat when they finally defeated the animal, or so they think, and they're just sort of left there like, yeah, man, you did a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, all right, at least, when the chips are down, they're able to come together.
And then Pam called him short, and all bets were off, and he called her a horse or something.
Yeah. This was one I feel like it's funny the way the sort of like rivalry between the couples, it's basically just there as a little bit of a break from the fighting. The chinchilla thing, right? Like, I don't know, it kind of goes back to the Dick Van Dyke thing of like, it was a funny adventure, like we went as a couple hoping for a good time, and then this crazy thing happened.
Yeah.
The questionable move that it makes at the end is that when they leave, the show ends on a static shot of this monster thing just
They're
on
like,
the wall or something.
No, they were like, oh, they're back. They're in the bed. They were like, oh, this is the one safe place on this whole island is here in this bed. And then turns out it's a Murphy bed. They get slammed up in the wall. And who's under the bed but that little chinchilla thing? And he is like stuck upside down to the bed, like he pushed it from the ground up.
Yes, and I think the eyes
glowed red.
The eyes
and he's
are
like,
glowing red in this very like Spencer's Gifts kind of way. Like, to me, that might have been too far. Like, just giving you such a clear look on the thing. Like, that's where I wrote in my notes, this looks like something you would buy to cover up your Roomba in a funny way,
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
Just this
and
big
they
disc.
sat on it for a good while, and the studio audience is just cheering and laughing.
Yeah, that's what I mean, where at that point, they're kind of high on their own supply, I think. And it's like, guys, it was funnier when, like, we knew it was fake, but it was funnier when you're just seeing it moving fast in the crappy video resolution and everything. And it has a little bit of a sense of like, we don't know exactly what it looks like. Now we really just see it is this crappy prop.
Yeah.
And it deflates it a little bit. I
mean,
think.
my favorite part of all the fight scenes, nearing the end of the first part of the second fight, they're fighting, Pam and Martin are fighting it at the door. They've kind of like slammed it in the door. And so like Martin's beating it, and then Pam's like reaching outside and beating the butt that's sticking outside. And they're trying to like push it back out the door. And so they do. And then you see a person's hand like come and put it back up in the window. Yeah. And I was like, yep, I like it. All right. Yay, puppetry.
Yeah. They're not going for, Stan Winston level special effects here. No. So yeah, looking back over these, this is Okay, so that was from Romantic Getaways. The next one is going to be Bachelor Parties. But first, I'm going to give you a few more trivia questions. We're kind of, I think we're doing okay with these. We're sort of getting some, some lucky guesses.
Yeah, definitely some lucky guesses.
What does Martin think his friends stole from him? A CD player, a VCR, headphones, or a chain?
Oh, man. This is probably from an episode that I have not seen. I'm going to guess a chain. But it's 100% a guess, and it's because it's something small.
Yeah, I didn't hazard a guess on this one. The answer is the CD player. None of his friends stole the CD player. It was Bra Man from the 5th floor. I apologize if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. In the final season, Martin and Gina get promotions. What state do they move to?
Well, they're in Detroit, so they're in Michigan. Yeah. Oh, man. And he is a radio DJ.
Yeah.
Maybe like LA?
Well, yeah, your
maybe
choices.
Like California?
Your choices are Ohio, Florida, California, and Colorado. So yeah, California is an obvious choice, but you also wonder if like maybe they wooed him out there with like you could be the big DJ in this little, Miami or
Colorado
something.
or something. Yeah, who knows?
All right, I'll click California, and that is right.
Yes.
And that brings us to this segment from our Bachelor Parties podcast. I feel like this one had some bosom buddies action in it. I think
so.
This one,
maybe,
or maybe I'm just thinking that because their whole life is kind of like a bachelor
like that.
Party.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I'm like, well, I don't know if they ever got married.
I guess I'm not going to be able to remember the ones offhand. This is from our Bachelor Parties episode, and this is us talking about the Martin episode called The Bachelor Party. Okay.
Belly dancer.
Yes. Moving on to Martin.
Season 3, episode 25, The Bachelor Party.
Yeah, we've covered Martin a handful of times now. I think this is one of our big sort of pleasant surprises coming to revisit Martin. Yeah. I think, we both kind of remembered it vaguely from the 90s, but figured there'd probably be some rough stuff with the shenane, with the whole sort of 90s attitude. And we've come to find that they're really, really fun. It's maybe one of the best shows ever for giving the female lead as much fun, weird stuff to do as the male lead. And it's, I think, officially one of our favorite sitcoms at the Sitcom Study.
Oh, I think agree 100%. What I was kind of looking forward to in this lineup, and we didn't get a lot of Edith because obviously this was the backdoor pilot, but we have Lucy, Edith, and Gina.
And Leslie Knope.
But Lucy, Edith, and Gina are characters within the same world. Like they have this a little voice, like they all do like, oh, Ricky, or oh, Gee, and Gina's got Martin, like they all have that like thing, and they all are like larger than life in their physical comedy. I think that episode that we watched of All in the Family where Edith was literally running around the house, like back and forth into the kitchen and the living room. But I mean, especially Lucy and Gina, just the physical comedy, the relationship that is the two of them, and not really, the kids aren't around yet for most of Lucy, and the friends that live in the same building and all that. But there's just like, as characters, I think Lucy and Gina are so similar. So I was so looking forward to watching a Lucy episode and a Gina episode and a little bit of Edith. We didn't get a lot, but for this lineup, and was not disappointed. There wasn't as much physical comedy in this as we've seen in our many other episodes, but there's a little bit.
Yeah.
And we're solidly in the era of the blooper reel that runs after the last ending scene. And we got some great Tisha Campbell vocalizing, like doing some opera singing and like whistle tones, man. She was hitting some high notes in the fun little bloopers at the end.
Yeah, that was weird. Yeah, this definitely, the Fresh Prince did that. A lot of the shows in the 90s liked the bloopers at the end. But this is going to be one where now that we're in the 90s, this is exactly what you would expect from a Bachelor Party episode. Begin the episode, all the guys are at Martin's house for the Bachelor Party, all the ladies are somewhere at with
Pam's
Gina
house,
and Pam for the Bachelorette party. There's all of the sort of deception that we were talking about before. Martin is telling Gina, oh yeah, don't worry, baby, we're having a magician come
the
over.
Entertainment's coming. It's a magician.
Yeah, exactly. That same sort of, weird, nobody's on the same page.
But in this time, though, we've got, like, the girls are given as good as they get, right?
Yes.
Because they have a stripper as well.
Yeah.
And Martin doesn't like that, and he undermines it, gets rid of the hot stripper, and sends some, like, dopey dumb guy over. And so this is only season 3, but there's a lot of other friends and characters in this that I've never seen before.
Yeah, well, I'm sure some of them are randos that they just brought in,
but
just
some of
day
them
players.
have a lot of lines for being like randoms, and they have already started moving away from Shanae.
Oh, yes, we'll see that. But yeah, we get, of course, Martin has his 2 friends, Tommy and whatever the other guy is, that
Cole.
Yeah, one of them's a tall, bald guy, one of them's a short, chubby guy. And then, a lot of the people at this party, it seems like it's like a costume bachelor party or something, or like they were coming from some weird other event.
No, there is one guy in particular. Well, okay, so there's 2, but one guy that talks, and I can't even looking on the IMDb, I can't figure out who this guy is.
You're probably referring to the guy who looks a little bit like Tyler Perry, but he's wearing a barbershop striped shirt and a wig that goes only around the bottom of his head, so he's got like long hair in the back, like a mullet.
But it's a mullet, but it's a mullet wig, but just the bottom.
Yeah, just
and
meant
it's
to
glued,
be worn with a cowboy hat or something.
I guess, but it's glued to his head in the same way that like extensions are glued.
I just thought it was like a strap.
No,
I just thought it was like a silly costume.
No, it's not. That's what I'm telling you. It is not a costume. Like this is this guy's look, and he looks insane. And it's red hair, so it's like red, kind of crimped, like wavy. Like remember the crimp machines that would like put that wave in it? That's what. And it's red, and it's just like attached around the bottom of his head, behind his ears, and it's glued onto his head. It's the strangest thing I've ever seen. I've never seen a man look like this. And then they got a white dude who's really, really, and so this guy with the like half a mullet, he has lots of lines. He's like a friend that is he's part of the show. There's another guy who's just like an extra.
Yeah, there's only one white
big
guy.
White dude, and he is wearing one of those Jackson 5 Afro wigs.
Yes, gigantic. Yeah, like a Halloween party.
Right.
Exactly.
He got from Party City, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What is happening?
There's also one of the guys, like a big dude that's wearing overalls that doesn't look like he's dressed
but that's the guy that is like the dopey neighbor that they send over to be the stripper.
That's the same guy.
Yes,
sure?
that was what happened. There was no scene where we see Martin tell that guy to leave the bachelor party and go over to be the stripper, but we see Martin meet the actual stripper because he is a friend of Tommy's and he couldn't find the apartment number that he was supposed to go to, so he came over to Martin's apartment.
We get a little reference to House Party because Martin goes, I didn't know Full Force got back together. Full Force is the rap trio, the 3 guys that are in House Party with them. I think that's what that's referring to, because the guy kind of looks like him. I was wondering if maybe it even was the same guy.
I thought he was making a bunch of references. Like he was teasing Tommy about how like good looking this guy was, and he's like, Tommy, do you need to tell me something? Like, is your Jim gay? Like, what's going on? Like, you don't look like him. Like, you're not as built as he is.
Yeah.
And so then he realizes that he's the stripper for Gina's bachelorette party, and he sends him, he's like, get out of here. You're not going over there. Nobody's telling you where it is. Get out of here. And then the next scene we see is Gina's bachelorette party, and there's the big, fake cake, and this guy jumps out of it, and it's the guy from the bachelor party that was wearing
the big
overalls.
lumbering guy.
And he talked kind of like this in that voice that you said, all the dumb guys, like that we always do with the dumb guys. And Gina's like, what are you doing here? Why are you, he's got a weird flower stuck to his head. And he's like, Martin sent me over because he didn't like, how good looking the other stripper was.
Yeah. So we're kind of all over the place, but that's because this story is sort of like, again, the dueling bachelor party.
Right. They're
like
jumping
stuff
back and
going
forth.
on.
Yeah.
This one and this one. We've got edible underwear at Gina's bachelor party, which I have purchased for a lady at some point. Yeah.
Not me.
No, you wouldn't want me to. Believe me, it's disgusting.
I don't want you to eat for roll-up off of my butt.
What I was just going to explain is that, yes, what I learned back in the 90s when I bought these things at Spencer Gifts was this edible underwear, quote unquote, is just fruit roll-ups, like vaguely in the shape of underwear, but not even really. And so, yeah, I thought at first I got them for my friend Alyssa, but then I realized, no, I think I got her the naughty pasta in the shape of penises. I think I actually got my girlfriend in college the edible underwear. And yeah, within 10 seconds, we're just like, get rid of this.
This is so gross.
Yeah. But so they've got that going on. My favorite part of Martin's bachelor party is they're retiring his jersey, right? And you see like a jersey up there. So
it
like
says Martin and it's got 23 on it.
23, like Jordan's number.
Yeah.
But like, is it his sex jersey? Like, what sport is this from? Like, what is the
I think they're just
here?
making the joke that, like, that's it. And, you know, again, this is just, like, continuing this thread of, like, your life ends when you get married.
It doesn't look like a basketball jersey.
Yeah, it does.
It's a tank top like that? Okay.
Yeah. They just had it spread out. They had it mounted and framed.
Okay. I thought that was funny. Like, we're retiring his jersey of banging ladies because
and then the friend with the weird half mullet asks for his little black book.
Yeah, we get that. But then where we get our requisite sort of Martin slapstick silliness is in the speculative fantasies, you know, because both of them, Martin and Gina, are going to have their friends put ideas in their head, you know, that sort of give them last minute jitters or worries about the future. In Martin's case, it's going to be like, oh man, you're getting married, you know, another one bites the dust. Your girlfriend Gina, she's hot now, but, you know, pretty soon she's going to be obese and she's going to have
popping out kids. So she's not going to be able to lose the weight, and she's going to be fat and tired and cranky because she's having so many kids.
So we get, you know, it's not like Saved by the Bell where we have the pink around it, but we get the blurry edged border.
Yes.
And we get the fantasy where, this is where we get Tisha Campbell really, you know, getting to do her stuff. She's in this ridiculous fat suit and she's holding multiple plastic babies, and they're having this whole crazy argument.
She's
and then
ironing, and she's eating like ring dings.
And then at some point, she just like accidentally plops out a baby, gets upset, and kicks it.
Well, her water breaks, and while she's holding two babies, and she's like, I didn't even know I was pregnant. And then she like tosses the two babies to Martin that she's holding. There's like 4 other babies on the couch, and then she leans over and she's like doing these like deep knee bends because she's like like giving birth, and she's like, damn it, I didn't know I was pregnant. And then, you know, baby pops out and she kicks it. It's very funny.
That thing of her just like offhandedly kicking the baby, like, to be clear, in any other context would be a very disturbing notion. But this, just going back to the crazy chinchilla monster and the vacation episode of Martin, just the way that they love these little toys and dummies and stuff, it's very funny. So that's Martin's fantasy is, you know, I'm going to be married to this
nightmare,
old cow. And then we get Gina's
and
fantasy.
that he's working 5 jobs, and that she just wants his money. She doesn't care about him anymore.
Just this generally sort of like miserable, like the drudges of married life.
Right.
Which is funny because to me, I look at that and I'm like, I get that that's not ideal, but I'll take like this fantasy over like having to hang out in clubs and bars and stuff. Like, are you kidding? Like, it's not that bad. And then we get Gina's fantasy, which is going to be, you know, her friends tell her Martin is just going to be a total dog, you know, you're going to be stuck
cheat
at home.
on you.
Yeah, and so we get her thing of like, in her fantasy, she's like Hillary Clinton or something. She's coming home.
Hilarious because she walks in, and you know, like we said, the voice that she does as Gina is a little bit baby talk. Like, it's a little, Martin, why do you always do this? Yeah. You know what I mean? She has this little like baby talk kind of thing that she does with that voice. She walks in her fantasy nightmare thing, and she's in a pantsuit and she's been at work and she's like, Martin, I spent all day. And she has this like white girl voice. When I'm just like, what is happening?
It's her fantasy of the exaggeration of, yes, I will be a refined businesswoman and Martin is just going to be this lowlife that, he's got some girl in a maid outfit. He stashes her in the closet and he's got a dominatrix coming out with whips and chains and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's exactly the sort of worst case scenario.
And she's like, her friends planted the seed that she just would never see it. Like she would believe all of his lies because she would be blinded by love. And that's like her nightmare. And so then she wakes up, and was it that made her say, that's it, I'm out of here, and march down the hall?
Yeah, basically, we have another funny slapstick part where that big lumbering stripper guy goes, he decides to just hop out the window. So he goes, see you later. He was going to crawl
down the fire escape to go down to the other apartment, back to the thing.
And then we hear him just plummeting out the window, and we hear him yell up,
on a car
what happened to the fire escape? Yeah. Again, like, you hear us describe it, it might not sound that good, but they do really nail these little slapstick beats. And then, Gina goes like, it's one thing for him to sleep with other women, but he's not bringing whips and chains around my apartment, and storms out of Pam's apartment to confront him. And so, everything kind of comes to a head, right? She busts in.
With all the girls, all the women come.
She catches him in the act, fooling around, quote unquote. Now this,
but
frankly...
not.
Right, well, but see, that's what I was saying back in the other one. What Martin is doing here is what I wondered if they meant by fooling around, quote unquote.
I don't think so. I don't think so. So Martin,
he's dancing, he's flirting.
The strippers have arrived, and they're, obviously they're like, which one's the groom? And everybody points at him, and so then he's got a girl on each side, and the guys are throwing money at the girls.
To his credit, he says, no, Gina wouldn't allow that. You guys have your fun, but of course,
no. And so he's dancing in between them, and they're like dancing on either side, and the guys are all throwing money at them, and they're clothed. I mean, they're in tight, like bandeaued kind of dresses.
It's fooling around. Literally, he's just goofing around. At least at that moment,
right? I mean, they're just dancing. They're having they're having fun. They're having fun. It's not
certainly
anything
not what you want to see.
But she comes in and she's like, "Oh, are these the magicians? What are they going to make disappear?"
Well, that goes back to what we were saying. Yeah, if it wasn't all steeped in deception and duplicity, then maybe you wouldn't have such a problem. But she comes in. I don't know if she notices his retired sex jersey, but she's like, "What's with the girls?"
On the wall.
Yeah, and so it looks like we're going to be on our way to another David Green situation where we have to call off the wedding. They go off into the bedroom or whatever, and we get a kind of sitcom-y, what are we doing here?
Yeah, they both they start the fight by sharing by saying, like, you're not going to have whips and chains in my apartment.
They do.
And Martin's like, yeah, well, you're not going to be 400 pounds and popping out a baby every other day.
They do the sitcom-y thing of referring to their fantasies as though the other person would know what they're talking about.
And they both take that seriously, and they're like, no, of course I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not, you're my person. Like, I'm not interested in having other women. And she's like, well, what makes you think, why did your friends convince you that we were going to have a baby every other day? Like, that's not possible. And he's like, I don't know what's possible. Yeah. And she's like, you need to calm down. Like, we're not having 87 children. Like, that's not in the cards.
He says, well, Tommy and what's his face, they kind of were talking about that. And then Gina says, hey, Pam is pretty persuasive, and she was saying what you were going to do. And so, they kind of come to their senses. What Gina says is very sweet. She says, this party isn't for us, it's for them, our friends. She says, because you and me, we can party together for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
And that's sort of like, that kind of breaks everything.
And it's like, oh, and then they kiss, and that's basically the end of the episode.
Yeah. And so again, we get, it is a little bit of like a Miller Boyette style ending where everyone kind of hugs and is friends again. But, now we're firmly into sitcom, 90s, bachelor party, all that stuff. As we've sort of been over it all. We've got the ladies, we've got the lying, we've got the edible underwear and all that,
yes.
At least now.
And the friends kind of always having bad things to say about you, A, settling down, and B, the person you're settling down with.
Yes, the notion that the bachelor party is your last chance to be happy or content in any way because the rest of your life is going to be nothing but a prison of your own making.
That's right. You're going to be stuck with this dick, or you're going to be stuck with this shrew, and it's all your own fault. But the other thing we get is this is the first time where the couple actually has the ability to communicate.
Yeah.
And so even though it is kind of a Miller Boyette ending, and it does start very heightened and silly with the, like the nightmare sharing, they do have that moment where it's like, where they say, like you said, that this party isn't for us. Yeah. It's for them because they are sad that they're not us. Yeah. And they want to have a blowout because it makes them sad that they haven't found someone.
Yeah, and that their social world is changing because we're stepping out to a certain extent.
Right. And then also that recognition that like they're both choosing this and they're choosing each other, and that it's they get to party together, and isn't this the best? That let them have fun out there. And it's also a thing that happened that I've seen that I feel like happens kind of all the time in many Bachelor and Bachelorette episodes, is that the parties end up combining.
Yeah.
And the friends get to hang out with the friends. Usually, and they have a good time.
Because of a phone call or some sort of communique that goes like, I'm going over there.
That's right.
I got to put a stop to this.
So it's because of the suspicion, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a good movie called Bachelorette with Lizzie Kaplan and Rebel Wilson and Kirsten Dunst.
I remember that movie. That is
kind of
good.
Has a similar sort of storyline. But yeah, so the way this is kind of evolving over the years is pretty interesting. The way we have, starting with Lucy, where you can only vaguely hint at, the goings on at a bachelor party, and then All in the Family, where you can be more explicit, but it's still off camera. And now here with Martin, where the episode is going to take place in the bachelor party with the strippers, with the penis pasta and the edible underwear and all that. And now finally getting into the 21st century, we're going to reach the point where we get the postmodern bachelor party, where we don't need the strippers and the naughty pasta.
But we still need the penis hats.
Yes, yes. Well, the ladies, I think, have not gotten the memo. I think now bachelorette parties are the ones that get all wild and stuff. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's move on to Parks and Recreation. All right, and now we're going to finish it off with our segment that we did with our good friend Dave on our Secret Musical Talents episode.
Oh, yeah.
But first, I'm going to ask you the last few questions of our Martin trivia quiz. What's the name of the character that Martin always gets in a fight with?
Pam.
Well, I mean, that is true, but your guesses here are Ms. Jerry, Miss Minnie, Miss Porter, or Miss Waters.
Good night. I don't know. Miss Porter.
That is wrong. It's Miss Jerry. Every time they see each other, they go at it. And this looks like, it's a crappy picture, but it kind of looks like a lady wearing a muumuu who's like beating him with a purse or something. That kind of thing. All right, I'm going to give you one more. What is Martin's apartment number?
Ooh, that is good. Oh, man.
Your options are 40, 41, 42, or 43.
42.
Yeah, I'm going to say Martin loves Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And so
it's the answer to everything.
Life, the universe, and everything, he chose 42. And that is correct.
Hey!
This is where Martin and the gang come together and spend time with one another. All right, so
That's also where he says, get to stepping.
Yeah.
That's at the door.
In room 42. Apartment 42. Okay, and we finished the quiz.
Okay.
So you got 6 out of 10 correct. You scored better than 31% of all other quiz takers.
6 out of 10. That's pretty rough.
I'm going to say, in the interest of cultural propriety, I'm just going to read this as it is with no English on it. What's up? 5 exclamation points. You passed the quiz. You truly know your stuff. You go, girl. If I didn't know any better, I'd think you were a guest on the show.
With 6 out of 10, that's a pretty celebratory tone for 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I don't know if they say that to everybody, but yeah. So, we did so on the Martin quiz. And so let's listen to this final segment from the Secret Musical Talents episode. This is us talking about Martin.
And how amazing of a singer both Tisha Campbell and Tashina, whoever plays Pam, I can't remember her last name right now, how great they both are.
Yep. So this is it from Secret Musical Talents. All right, shall we move on to Martin?
Martin Season 4, Episode 3, Blow Baby Blow.
Yeah, we've covered Martin many times on the podcast now.
Love us some Martin.
We love it for many reasons, but one of them because it always gives Gina lots of fun stuff to do.
Tisha Campbell, and this was
no exception.
No different.
Yeah, so I guess this is season 4. I guess since the older episodes we watched, Martin's become a TV host instead of a radio guy.
Right. So he's kind of, he's expanded, and now he has a TV show where they feature music. They're in, Detroit, Motor City, right? Motown. Right. And so he has moved on to this like local kind of cable TV show. It's a talk show. But in this episode, we get another one of our throwback tropes, right? We have a guest star, Biggie Smalls.
Yeah, Biggie Smalls walks in pretty much like, second
right away,
15 of this. He's playing himself. He's a friend of Martin's, I guess, just from their old times or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's established pretty quickly he's going on tour and he needs a singer.
Yeah,
What's
he
the
needs
deal?
a new backup singer.
Backup singer, yeah.
Yeah, and so they want to have auditions or whatever, but really the most important thing is Martin says, come to my house, come stay with me, come meet my wife Gina, she'll love it, and you can go from there.
Right. So Biggie is having a hard time because everywhere he goes, he's so big now, people recognize him and they're starting to stake out his hotels. And the last hotel he stayed at, some lady showed up shoving a demo tape in his face when he was taking a shit. And so he's like, this sucks. I need to be able to, I just want to get off the road and have a home cooked meal. Yeah. And Martin's like, I got a wife. She'll do that.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic here because it starts with Martin saying, he says specifically, Gina, don't trip. I'm Big Papa in my house, right? So he's referencing Biggie's own lyrics.
Does,
but
right?
yes,
he's
doing this thing.
My woman.
Right, but this is an interesting case though, because he's doing his thing of I rule the roost, I wear the pants, which we all know is going to get undermined. He comes home, he says, you Biggie, wait out in the hallway while I explain everything to Gina.
Oh yeah, this is good.
And so of course, Gina's like, no, you can't have somebody stay here, blah, blah, blah. She's not on board with it.
Yes.
And then when he brings in Biggie and she sees who it is, she's like, oh my God, whatever, come in, let me make you dinner. So Martin ends up being right, but not for the reason he wanted to be.
Well, and
because Biggie rules the roost,
You're damn
not
right.
Martin.
Exactly. Well, and the way they did it, though, again, this show is so smart with the way that they play against each other and off of each other. Tisha Campbell is in the middle, Gina's in the middle of this tirade, Martin, I'm tired, I've been working on I can't do this. No, I thought we could go out for dinner, And Martin just kind of slowly walks toward the door while she's going on and on and on. And right as she gets kind of to the culmination of her, there's no way I'm going to do this. We can't have somebody staying here. Oh, and he opens the door and she's like, welcome. I was just about to cook some dinner. You want SpaghettiOs and shrimps? Let's go.
Yeah.
Which really does a wonderful job of honestly selling SpaghettiOs and shrimp. The second I heard that, I was like,
I would eat that.
I do want SpaghettiOs and shrimp.
But it is weirdly vindicating for Martin because it's he's presenting it a little bit differently, but it's he was still right to know that Gina wouldn't mind.
And he knew he was right. That's why he's grinning the whole way towards the door because he knew what was going to happen.
Yeah. So we get what I feel I don't know if it happens in any of these other shows, but I feel this is a trope in general of somebody is just sort of la la la, I'm washing the dishes, so I might as well
Tisha Campbell,
come to
who
myself.
We know is from Little Shop of Horrors,
Absolutely.
right out of college. In college, she was in Little Shop of Horrors. Tisha Campbell can sing.
She can sing so well. She is so good.
And not only can she sing, but like we talk about it every time we watch Martin, the physical comedy chops on this woman.
Yep.
She is a delight to watch. And so, so she's washing the dishes and she's kind of like, and all of a sudden Biggie's like, hey, you kind of sound like Anita Baker. And she's like, who, me? Oh, no, stop. Oh. And then we find out the whole premise that he's here to audition for backup singers, and it just keeps spreading.
Yes.
Yeah, he just says you have a nice voice, but he never actually says, like, I want you to audition. Never, like, there's this weird tension because Martin and Biggie, I guess, are on the side of, like, it is inappropriate for Gina and my other friends to be bothering you about this. You need to find a singer through the normal channels.
Right, and he is looking for a professional. He doesn't want to take Gina out on tour with
But
him.
it's Biggie's own fault for saying you sound just like Anita Baker, you have a beautiful singing voice, and laying that seed in Gina's mind.
Of course.
That now, in the subsequent scenes, she's going to be doing housework in her, like, glittery dress, which I think might be the dress from Little Shop of Horrors. By
Is
the way.
it?
She looks
It
just,
does. It's kind of teal, not green.
Yeah.
But it could
I
be.
wasn't sure, but looking at it,
I
I'm
have
like,
that dress in hot
looks...
pink.
But yeah, at some point, Pam, the friend, is going to get in on the action. She wants
always,
to...
right? So just like what always happens with Martin, the door opens midway through, scene 2, and in comes all the people that are their friends.
Yeah, and I had that as like how... Like, that is such a trope. Like, nobody
that's such
knocks.
a sitcom
it's
thing.
like, hey,
Just walk
we're
in.
just like, the full Kramer. Just
Yes.
it's a full press Kramer. Like, we're just walking in. Walk it in the door. There's no rules. There's no boundaries.
Nope.
Mikasa, also Mikasa.
I am never sitting around in my underwear. Everyone is always welcome.
Yes.
Exactly.
Just barge on in, John.
Right. These two, no kids, young couple, never having sex on the couch.
Never.
They're just all like, if it's happening, it's in the bedroom,
yes.
right?
Yes. The other thing I had is, and it's been a long time since I'd seen an episode of Martin. I think the last time I watched it was like when it ran.
Yes.
Pam is far too attractive.
To be called a dog in every
Absolutely.
Well, that's part of the reason why it goes down easier now, I think. It is funny. We talked about this when we've covered Martin in the past. Yes. Non-stop jokes about how she is a dog. She is an animal.
Bro.
Yeah. Oh, but one time we got that she's a horse.
Yeah.
This time, or a donkey.
But there's a point, I definitely am not going to co-sign on it, but there's a point where it almost comes back around because it gets so, it's so extreme, and she is just this perfectly normal looking lady, and he's so consistent with it that when you watch it now, it almost stops becoming, oh, you're ugly, you're a dog, and it becomes this weird Baroque thing, like he actually thinks she is a dog or something.
See, I took it as like the more it happened, like the first one I was like I absolutely clutched my pearls. I was like, what, dude? Like,
you just kind of get used to it.
Yeah, but it makes him more insecure, feel infinitely more insecure the more he does it.
Yeah, and we're also in the place now where so she, in some of the episodes that we watch, Pam comes back with as many insults as he comes with. In this episode, she's more just shut up and pushing him aside, you're stupid. Nobody's listening to you.
Because she has an agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah, they both want to audition for him. So there's scenes of Pam and Gina sort of fighting amongst themselves, just because they're throwing shade at each other.
Yes.
You're Anita Faker, you're phony Braxton, all those jokes or whatever.
And if we get one more, you can be phony.
It's such a good joke.
It's such a good joke.
But this is pretty much all going to boil down to they have this audition on Martin's show.
On his TV show. He decides to do an amateur night on the TV show.
Not unlike Gomer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so all these people are coming in trying to audition for the backup singing role.
Yeah. Oh, I also wanted to back up a second and mention when Gina is in that slinky dress around the house, she gets the great sort of comedy showcase of her dust dancing.
That's right.
Right? She's dusting and she's trying to play it off. Oh, I just wear this whenever I dust, and sometimes I sing when I dust.
Yeah,
and
she's
it's like,
got a feather duster. She keeps turning it upside down and using it as a microphone.
Yeah.
She's like, hey,
no, she's really
and
good.
then Biggie starts talking about what he wants it. He's like, it's not just singing. I need, you need to be able to do choreography. You need to be able to move.
Right.
And she's like, oh, you mean to move? Well, we do it, and just full on. I mean, just full. Like 300% commitment to the idea that I am going to just destroy any choreography that you will throw at me.
And she looks good. She was dancing. God, she's just
it's
so
that
good.
crazy, the fly girl dancing.
Yes.
from the
Yes,
90s.
but she has all the rhythm, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
totally.
like she just smiles. Her smile lights up a room. I love her.
Yeah, and I also put this as echoes of the Bobby Brown appearance on 227. I felt like just the way the apartment just becomes like a buzz with people. It's like everything's
Everybody wants to be in this apartment. We have kind of glossed over, but because I forget the other friend's name, right? That Martin's got the two guy friends.
Yes.
The one who isn't dating Pam shows up and then slips the demo tape into the player, and it is Sugar Hill Gang, and he starts like a hip hop, a hippie to the hippie to the hip. It was so fun.
Yeah, we get all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, when we finally get to this audition, we get a juggler, right? There's always got to be a juggler.
This is a good juggler, though.
Yeah, the juggler and the other one, they get the cutaway because the eggs drop on the stage. We don't get to see it. We just see somebody mopping it up. This juggler...
He's good. He's
can
very
juggle.
well. He's eating the apples while he's juggling. Like, he's not a bad juggler. He is the wrong act for this show.
Yes, that's always your way of conveying, like, we got everybody in the kitchen sink here.
Yeah.
We got every Tom, Dick, and Harry coming out of the woodwork. And yeah, we basically have both Pam and Gina just totally sinking their teeth into this silly performance.
They do impressions, right? So Martin is the MC for this thing, and Martin's like, I don't know who this next person is, but she does a mean Tina Turner, and he introduces her, and Pam comes out in this like that big spiky Tina Turner wig.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And she is in it looks like a clogging skirt.
Yes.
She's got like 8 petticoats or whatever underneath it.
It's like 40 pounds of crinoline and
Yes. And she's doing the thing that Tina would always do. Like, well, this song here, this reminds me of my time back in the day.
And she, it was great.
Good job.
Right.
Yeah.
But she comes out and does it. I did not know that Pam could sing like this.
Yeah.
This was no joke either.
Yeah. So good. Such like, and again, it's that full commitment to the bit. There is a full commitment. She walks out and she's doing this in front of Martin and Biggie and everybody in there. Like, it is... And I don't mean the character. I mean
her
the actress
as an actress
is doing
this.
She is really doing this in front of very famous, talented people, and she does not give an active shit. She is there. She is kicking things over. She is just crushing the absolute hell out of this, and I could not celebrate it enough.
No, it was so great. And midway through the performance, then you see Gina kind of kick her way on stage in a Whitney Houston outfit.
Yeah, like a tiara, her Queen of the Night type.
Yes, she's got the head wrap on and her hair sticking out of the top, and she's got the tiara thing, and she's gorgeous, but very Whitney Houston-esque. And then she sings Dreamgirls.
Yes,
I'm
you're gonna love
telling
me. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I was falling over. I was like, oh, this is it. This is it.
We get the full-on battle of the divas.
Yes. And they... it always does, it descends into the fighting chaos.
Shoes off, wig snatched.
Wig snatched! It was great. And you can see Tisha Campbell and the actress who plays Pam when Tisha Campbell gets her wig snatched off. Because, I think what was supposed to happen was they were just supposed to snatch off the Tina Turner wig, and hers was supposed to stay on. Yeah. But it doesn't. And she, goes to put the Tina Turner wig on her bald head. Yes. And they're laughing as they're fighting.
And And
that's just so fun.
That is Martin in a nutshell. Like, they come up with these goofy slapstick scenes. Oh, we're going to have a monster in the hotel that's going to be like a Roomba with some fur on it.
A chupacabra.
And then, and then it's always like something goes a little too far. It's like, oh, but the bra wasn't supposed to break, or the leg on the dummy wasn't supposed to come off. You know, like there's always some extra step of chaos.
Right.
But the thing I like about Martin, and I had forgotten about it until I watched it, is... and now watching it with like very grown-up adult eyes, is very much in the edit or whatever, they always keep in the not I won't call them screw-ups, but the rougher edges, which I think is... I think it's very much, the signature of that series is like, him with the clearly stuffed barking dog throwing it on the table in episodes. Like, and I remembered it all. Like, there's an edge to it that
I think
makes it work.
It's also Martin Lawrence's sensibility and his loosey-goosiness. This was also in the age where The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air started doing the outtakes during the closing credits. And then every show started to jump on that. Like, why are we pretending that this is real life? Let's get everybody in on it. Let's show them all the goofs and all that stuff. Yeah, totally.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. There's the story about Mork and Mindy where the writers got to a point with Mork and Mindy where they would just like at the top of a page be like, Robin does his thing.
Yes.
And that would be like, 5 minutes of the show.
Yes.
And they wouldn't write anything because it was just...
And then you could just be Jonathan Winter's response.
Exactly. And they would do that. And then, right?
Yeah.
And so, but this, I feel like that's what happened with the writing room in this show as well. It's like, they fight and then it's just, it goes on or the comedy ensues and they do every time. And every single time, like Tisha Campbell wins it for
delivers.
Me. She is always the funniest. She is always the most physical. She's always the one that like your eye just keeps going to, even if she isn't. Like in this, she's meant to be the center, right?
Yes.
But in these other ones, she's not, but she just is.
Yeah, no, it is really interesting because as we keep saying, like there's aspects of the sense of humor that don't age well. And yet I think it's kind of clear now, like, there's no other show that gives the lady character that's built around a man and gives her as much to do and is as generous with the humor and the comedy as this. Like there may be Mary Tyler Moore in Dick Van Dyke, but even that I feel like doesn't reach the levels of like you actually get to be funnier than me in this, Yeah. And then in addition to all that slapstick stuff, they always can bring it back to what Martin does best, which is that seething, I'm so angry that it's funny, right? Yeah. And that's how this ends, with him just going, can you tell Gina or can you tell Tommy to tell Gina that I don't care if Biggie got his singer in the end or whatever.
Or it's been a week. I don't care if it's been a week. Yeah.
And then so we get to like the very last moment of the episode is they're watching TV because they're going to do the announcement of who actually got the backup singer. And of course, it's Shanae from across the hall.
Yes, which we had discussed. I think by this time they had sort of phased Shanae out. Yeah, so this ends with a straight-up B.I.G. performance, kind of like some of our episodes from the early 90s hip-hop guest spots. We get just a, straight up, we'll give the last 3 minutes of the show to Biggie to do a song. And look, it's a Fox show in the 90s. Why not, right?
Why not?
Yeah, the only thing I would say in terms of tracking the trope is this is an outlier in the sense that these are very willing participants.
Yes, they want it.
Yes, these are not people called up against their will.
They got just a dash of like compliments thrown their way and just ran the full marathon. That was all it took. No hypnotism, no reluctance, just the polite breath of a compliment, and they are full Tina Turner.
Yeah, and Pam didn't even need that.
Yeah, she didn't. She just heard that somebody else was going full Tina Turner, and there's no.
She's like, I could do better than that.
I will be the antimatter to your matter just by scientific proxy. One of the other things I wanted to talk very briefly about, because I loved it, is the idea of the guest star so just pounding you with references to who they are within their dialogue.
Yes, that was happening so much throughout this, right?
Yes.
Like when he came on screen from like what was the thing you were like back and back?
Baby,
baby, right?
Yeah. I love Biggie. I do.
Clearly, and so like you made several references as the show was about getting ready to start that were then said during the show. Yeah.
I was like, is that a trope? Because you mentioned the Bobby Brown. Like, is it all references to Bobby Brown songs?
Yes.
I think it absolutely is a trope in the cheesy sitcom writing. I'm surprised Biggie stood for it. Like, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
If I was him, I would be like, I don't go around quoting my own lyrics.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? That would be the lamest thing in the world.
So when I was doing research for this, right, Biggie was in the process, in talks of getting his own talk show. He was like in contract phase to have a Biggie Smalls talk show.
Really?
And shortly after, because this episode's 95, shortly after this was filmed and like some other things were going on, that's when the Tupac beef started being played up in the media.
Right.
And because he was now like this bad guy, the talk show contract talks ended. Yeah, because he was bad in quotes.
Oh, man.
I mean, what different life would it have been if we had a Biggie Smalls talk show?
Well, and he was like, he seemed like a really good sport because they take super digs at his weight.
And he was having fun with it, though. He was just enjoying himself.
Like, threw a Fat Boys joke at him,
Yes,
like
they
pretending
did.
to be like what I'm like. But I loved that aspect of it, and I was really curious. Like, is that a thing?
I would say yes. I would say if you bring in a celebrity guest, you're going to write cheesy little jokes that reference their
At least
things.
twice. So like at least twice you're going to have a song lyric or something that they're known for, thrown at them. It's my prerogative.
Yeah. We got plenty of that.
Yes.
Exactly. All right. Let's finish it up with Schitt's Creek. That was from Secret Musical Talents, and there you have it. Our knowledge of Martin is, good but not great.
Marginal. Better than average, apparently. I don't know about that.
But our appreciation is real. So what do you think? I mean, high school reunions, romantic getaway, bachelor party, Secret Musical Talent. I feel like we're both probably on the same page about this. Does one jump out as...
the high school reunions episode, for me, was the champion. I mean, first of all, it's the earliest episode of the show Martin that we've ever watched. It was also the first one that we did, so it was kind of my first experience with Martin, since back in the day, since the 90s. And it blew me away. It was so funny. Oh, so funny.
Yeah, it's funny. I would have guessed we would have both jumped to the romantic getaway just because of that crazy like Roomba disguised as the Wolverine thing. Like it was just so ridiculous and silly and funny. The way that the camera shows you like the set falling down and like you could see the guy's hand like throwing the thing in Gina's face. Like it's just so wild. But it is true. Like I think about any one of these and I get an immediate like mental thumbnail of like the musical talents thing with Gina. One of them was like a Whitney Houston knockoff and the other one was like a Tina Turner or something. And then, of course, like the crazy Gina stuff from the high school reunions. And then the bachelor party one, that was the one that was almost more sweet and kind of dug into their relationship a little bit, but still like, always really, really good. And Martin gets the official sitcom study seal of approval. And what are we talking about next week?
Next week, we're going alternate timelines. Long before the MCU, My Two Dads did it in Season 2, Episode 10, In Her Dreams. Malcolm in the Middle, Season 2, Episode 20, Bowling. Scrubs, Season 3, Episode 16, My Butterfly. And Community, Season 3, Episode 4, Remedial Chaos Theory.
Yep, we will be pondering other dimensions, other planes of existence, other paths our lives could have gone down next week. And until then, we will consider this segment of the sitcom study concluded. Thank you for listening to the Sitcom Study. Tell us what you think or share your own TV tropes and topic ideas by sending a self-addressed stamped email to sitcomstudypodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram. And if you like the show, consider leaving a rating or review on your podcast app. It helps us boost those precious Nielsen ratings. The Sitcom Study is recorded in front of a live studio dog.